Hey guys, just checking I'm live on Facebook as well. Pretty quick and nice and good. Sometimes I get let down by tech. It takes ages to upload. But anywho, hope all will be well. This will upload as possible. Anyway, it's your boy MKS here, back with another video, and welcome to the second part of my list on how I think dyslexic thinking can hopefully benefit Italian football and Celtic and help them to become world class Wednesdays and winning Wednesdays, I guess you could say as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and here it goes. So I know where people have given me feedback before, but for some reason, when my friend Rory got in touch with me, it sort of made me a bit more nervous, because I thought, I just hope my audio, I know it's kind of reminded me of things people have told me before, but I probably forgot about them. But anyway, I'll do my best, and I'll try and get to a point as quick as I can. And on that note, these are pointers number 11 to 20. I hope I don't forget anything either. But this is says Old Jamaica ginger beer. I think it's hopefully alcohol free, because I don't drink alcohol, but I couldn't see having any alcohol. But this is what I got from this. I was going to say from the event I went to, but I said in part one about how I went to volunteer somewhere. Yeah, so anyway, I was going to be trying to be patient and drink this tomorrow, but I'm very impatient, and my suspense is killing me. I don't think it's going to be that great, but I hope it'll be better than I think. I thought I'd have this instead of tea for once. Someone offered me water on Friday last week, and I said I don't drink water, and this lady started laughing. But anyway, I'm silly, I know. But yeah, sorry, these are pointers number 11 to 20. Hope you enjoy. I'm half and half on this one. I'm not sure if I like this. Anyway, yeah, maybe I should have. Yeah. I gave it to my mum, but then I decided to drink it myself. And she's out anyway. Nice life story anyway. So number 11, I agree. I think that dyslexics can use out of the box thinking to. I know I asked in part one what other people think as well. What I'd love for dyslexics to give suggestions, or even people like, say, if someone says I'm not dyslexic, but I know people who are dyslexic, and they have this thing that I think is really good about them, or this strength that they have, or whatever. But I think our out of the box thinking can be really good for things like sports. I think I know this is a bit off topic. I'm trying to focus on Italian football and Celtic, and often give these little things that were a bit off topic a little bit. But just talking about dyslexic strengths generally, a wealth of strengths. Think of another word that means a W. Out of the box thinking, I'll say. I think that let's say China and India. I often wonder if they utilize the strengths of dyslexics and realize that dyslexia is not just a weakness. It can be a weakness in some areas, like reading, writing, arithmetic, sitting down, following instructions, and being good at school, but it can be really good in things like business. I wonder if India and China and their economies, countries like them, Nigeria and places like that, could grow their economies even quicker by utilizing the strengths of dyslexics and realizing that, like, that kid in the classroom that's struggling could be the next Richard Branson or John Chambers, Charles Schwab, or whatever, or even one for the women and girls, the next Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank in America. For those who know that one, or for those who don't know, please Google. I suppose her name is quite hard to spell for someone with dyslexia, probably most of the time. I'm lucky, if you like, because someone taught me how to spell. But a lot of strengths other dyslexic people have, I don't have. But yeah, out of the box thinking, I talked about interconnected reasoning, which I think Made by Dyslexia talked about. And I mentioned in part one how this reminds me of like the series on like lessons in dyslexic thinking by the brilliant, excellent Kate Griggs from Made by Dyslexia and all the great team at Made by Dyslexia. And I'd love to bring together all the dyslexic groups and individuals and groups and whoever I can to come and travel to Italy, as I said in part one, and to work with the Italian football and Celtic. And whoever supports me with those goals, I hope to return the favour. What I call 1 2 for 1, or share for share, line for line, and like for like. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that now. But another thing is, I hope we can change Italian football and look at like things it does that it could improve upon. I talked about in the past generally as well. Like, I think Italian football could become more attacking, look at what winning teams do and learn from them and that kind of thing. I guess I wonder how much of my strategies I should share online or whatever. But I'm a bit impatient I'm really passionate about the ideas I have for Italian football and Celtic, especially Italian football. Almost as much Celtic, to be fair. But yeah, I sort of want to shout them from the rooftops, but then I realise you shouldn't give your potential opponent, your potential opposition, your strategies. People can analyse what you're going to do, and analyse your weaknesses. But moving on to number 12, going to play football in Italy, and again, travelling, sharing strategies and that kind of thing, but even giving Italians a chance to practice playing football, unlike Dyslexics and Dyscalculics and Dysgraphics, maybe even to an extent Dyspraxics, and even those with mental health problems perhaps in Italy being given those opportunities to play football. Basically, the more they play, hopefully the more fitter they'll be. And I read in a book on soccer tactics and skills or whatever, that practice does not make perfect, but it makes constant. So if you practice the wrong practices, so to speak, you will do the wrong things and continue to do the wrong things. But if you practice the right practices, you will improve and do the right things. So, but the thing is, I think practice does make you better. I don't know if perfection exists, to be honest with you, but practice does make you better, I'm sure. But it's better to have the right foreign practices. But if Italians played football for more than any other nation, I'm sure, hopefully, they can become number one. But having those like dyslexic mini World Cups, and dyscalculic and dysgraphic, and maybe even dyspraxic World Cups where people go and practice and also play against Italians there, and including people with mental health problems and also dyslexics, let's say, and other groups, including migrants, for instance. And I'm mainly focusing on dyslexics, dysgraphics, and dyscalculics, and possibly dyspraxics, but those that begin with D, because my alliterations. But even including migrants and other groups, maybe people with mental health problems and whatnot, in Italy, I think would mean they practice more, which I think would improve Italian football. What do you think? I'd love to know. And I hope we can have a campaign to make Italian football great again. Number 13. So I know I say I support Italian football from a selfish point of view, as just because I think I look Italian, but even though I'm talking about these ideas in the back of my mind, so to speak, I guess I am thinking like, I suppose naturally, like as people probably pretty much always probably do, really, is like think about what if it doesn't work out, or what if I can't convince dyslexics? But I'd only need to convince about 22 or so dyslexics. The more I get, the better. I mean, even 11 would be pretty cool, like a team of 11, or even 7, like 7-a-side team, or even just generally a few. But I'd love to get as many as possible. But I suppose practicalities when I think about having to put up with each other, if they can put up with me, because of my other quirks and traits or whatever. How much space we would have on a plane, or even if a wealthy dyslexic took us on a private jet, that'd be pretty cool. But how much space there would be even then, how much space there would be in hotels and things like that. But on that note, I'm going to move on to point number 14. If we travel together, I'm sure we could have loads of great deals. So like if hundreds of dyslexics are going to travel in the same airline and using the same trains and other forms of transport, same hotels or whatever, or at least around the same sort of areas. So hopefully we can get bulk deals and like get favourable deals on booking. I hope that now I know I'm a big fan of Italian football and Celtic, so I'm focusing on that. But I hope that sports generally, and football in particular, could be used. Some dyslexics might be into other sports that they want to get involved in. I hope sports, I know it kind of is a pathway for dyslexic people and possibly dyscalculics and dysgraphics, not so much dyspraxics, but there might be some, as I mentioned recently, who are into sport, but it could be a good pathway. So if you're not good at school, this gives you something that gives you a purpose in life. It can also help you to be part of something. Think about dyslexic strengths. So another strength we have is problem solving, which I have to mention, and I think Italian football unfortunately has a lot of problems. I was going to mention, I think in part 1, I forgot to say, Italy's struggling to qualify for the World Cup, and it could be a third time in a row that we get out, which would be really embarrassing for Italian fans like me. But even the fact that we've failed to qualify twice, I hope it'll be third time lucky, but I hope we can have a miracle and turn it around as well. And my fears are that like, even if I do get these goals, and even if I do manage to set up like the Dyslexic Billionaires Network and invest in time for and all these sort of things, invest into, donate to even, and sponsor it and whatever, that it will take so long. I'm very impatient. I want it to be done sort of now. So yeah, sometimes I feel like the end of the world, and like Italian teams not becoming first before the end of the world. So I hope the world will last long enough for Italian teams to become number one again and that kind of thing. But I mean, we were in the past, I say we as a supporter, so I'm sure we can again. I guess on that note, Celtic has to be wary to ensure that they stay top, because in the 90s it was the rankers, as I call them, so it could always change very quickly. So we have to be very careful and wary about our new manager. And that brings me to another dyslexic strength. It's like looking at the potential downside and being prepared. And I think sometimes dyslexics can be really good at that, like saying what could go wrong and how do I prepare, like they do in business, like how do I prepare to say, to protect myself from the downside and that kind of thing. I mean, most people like savings, I guess, or whatever. Well, a lot of people like savings, but I think it's more inspiring when you're going to invest. But the financial guru Robert Kiyosaki, who I have to mention, who could be dyslexic, talks about, says he doesn't think he's dyslexic, but he just felt that school didn't teach him things, and he couldn't work out when he was going to use this stuff like algebra or whatever. But gives hope that he's not very good at maths, but he does well in business, whatever, supposedly. But he mentioned like people say instead of saving, we should like invest, but find a way. Like he says, something about put a stop on his investment, so he has some sort of insurance against loss or whatever. But yeah, I think that's something that the dyslexics can prepare for, like protect from the downside. But as I say, I'd love for people out there to say what sort of thing. Even like people who are not dyslexic might say, "Oh, I've noticed this in my dyslexic friends that they're really good at this sort of area, or they're weak in this area and they're strong in this area." But when I was making these videos, I decided today, because I thought on the other days I was thinking of specific teams to cover normally, either the national team or Milan or Torino or whatever, Fiorentina or whatever. So I thought I would focus on, as it's a Wednesday, I thought I came up with a brainwave, so to speak, came up with an idea. And as the dyslexics are full of those, I guess. But I thought, what if I talked about like how we could help Italian football and Celtic become world class? So I think it brought me to dyslexic thinking and that kind of lessons in dyslexic thinking. I'd love to interview Andrew, or be interviewed by Kate Griggs and work with me by dyslexic. Again, I'd love to bring all the dyslexic groups, individuals and groups together to work together to show what we could contribute to things like, as I say, Italian football, Celtic, Asia, Africa, Asia, Latin America, and places like that as well. Again, for these videos, I'm focusing on Italian football and Celtic. Number 15, as I say, I don't have all the ideas, so I'd love for other people to say things I might not have thought of or whatever. And each dyslexic person will be at least a little bit just like other people, just like non-dyslexic people, neurotypical people, or whatever. So yeah, as I say, we're not all the same. Like, there's lots of weaknesses that I have where other dyslexics are really much better at, and I'm sure there's one or two areas probably where it might be the other way around. Although I say I don't have any skills or strengths, but I do have different. Because someone said a skill is something you can acquire, and a talent is something. I meant to say talents, not strengths. But yeah, I said I don't have any talents or skills, but I'm just an ideas person with mad ideas and dreams and whatever. I have a nostalgia of teams like AC Milan doing so well. I have a bit of a dilemma, because like part of me wants to see Roma become the Giallorossi Galacticos, which I've talked about in the past. The Roman gladiators, Giallorossi Galacticos, and therefore have the best possible players in all possible positions. But then part of me wants AC Milan to go back to their glory days and be to make a scary team that puts fear into the opposition and that kind of thing. So that reminds me of my idea and ideal and dream to bring in the best possible players, coaches, coaching staff, managers, directors of football, and that kind of thing, to Italian football, to club teams, and that kind of thing, and similar, I suppose, for the national team. It might be a little bit different, but similar in some ways. I guess they would still have a manager and coaching staff. You could still have a director of football to improve the time football, and dietitians to improve the diets. But obviously, it's a bit different with the national team and club teams. Well, I suppose it's different. The only difference probably is that you can't buy players in the national team where you can with club teams. And I guess you don't play as often. But moving on, number 16. So yeah, to bring back the pride to Italian football, I'd love for people to share committees and think tanks about how to make Italian football world class. Like one idea I personally have is for Italians to meet up, like former players and former and current players, managers, coaches, and all those involved in Italian football, and people from across Italy, like businesses, even councils, politicians, and whatnot, to say, and different organisations and whatever, say how can we get more young people playing football, what ideas could improve Italian football, how could it be more marketable, and meeting up each day, or at least discussing on Zoom as many Italians as possible, and those from the diaspora and that kind of thing, to say how can Italian football be proud again? How can it become world class and all that kind of thing? So I think that's my dyslexic creativity. I like things so anyway. I'll say I'm not much good at much else other than coming up with ideas. They just seem to come to me, but which is pretty cool in a way. But I'd love to be able to find ways to put them into practice. At least Facebook and YouTube, and hopefully in the future TikTok or whatnot, gives me a platform to share my ideas, which is pretty cool. I'm very appreciative of that platform. But and people who support my work, if you want to call that, or whatever. But I'd say I love to work smart, not hard. But yeah, so I love for players like Roberto Baggio, former players like Roberto Baggio, Dino Baggio, Buffon, Cannavaro, Nesta, Maldini, and all the former great Italian players to discuss with current players and with schools and parks. Like I'd love for former players to go into schools and parks and coach and work on youth development to come together. So I'd love for all possible citizens within Italy, including the migrants, to come together and improve relations with between Italians and people of different types, different backgrounds, like the black community and whatnot, through football, tackling racism and hooliganism and that kind of thing, even if I can't pronounce it properly. Yeah, I like to think that's my dyslexic, out of the box creativity. Although maybe non-dyslexics could think similar, I don't know. But yeah, anyway, moving on, number 17. So yeah, as I said before, I do have my doubts as to whether, like, I struggle to get to a point in my videos whether people will understand me. If I went to Italy, would I be able to share my ideas? Would people be able to understand me? As I say, I see myself as having no skills or no talents, and I'd love for there to be videos in the future on YouTube where they say how a guy with no skills or talents managed to help Italian football and Celtic to become super successful, winning so many trophies and becoming world class, or vice versa, or whatever, becoming world class, winning so many trophies and that kind of thing. And yeah, a part of me can't really picture it, but I love to think about those ideas and sort of imagine it. To me, imagination is like what I call picture, or even physical imagination, because for us dyslexics, we sort of see ourselves in a room and we sort of experience imagination as reality. We think in pictures instead of words, and they say a picture saves 1,000 words. So maybe we have a way of thinking 1,000 times more effective than non-dyslexics. Maybe not. I won't be too smug about it, but when I was at college, believe it or not, I went to college at one point, someone said, though they say a picture saves 1,000 words, it's still, if you see a picture, it doesn't mean much without a caption. So that perhaps shows, like us dyslexics, we have all these ideas, creativity, imagination, and all that kind of thing in abundance, but we struggle to unlock those gifts, if you like. It's a bit like having a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or whatever, BMW or Mercedes. Or I'm thinking like Ferraris or Lamborghinis, they look really nice, I think. I suppose they are Italian, which is fitting for this video. But yeah, having a really nice car basically, but not knowing how to drive it, which would be annoying. But we just need to learn how to unlock it, and how to drive it, how to unlock our gifts, if you like, maybe see it in a positive way. And as I say, since Made by Dyslexia, the Yale Centre for Dyslexia and Creativity and the Dyslexic Advantage, the Child Man Institute Understood, and so many others, I work on the positive traits of dyslexia and trying to show that we can achieve things. I think, why don't we work together and collaborate? I think that's a dyslexic strength of, like, bringing people together and, like, as I say, interconnected reasoning. So we share that goal, why don't we work together, all those different dyslexic individuals and organisations and those connected with dyslexia, to show what we can do. And in this case, hopefully, travelling to Italy and Celtic to benefit Itanful and Celtic. Also, another strength they say about dyslexics, they'll say the MIND strength. So I think M stands for mastery, like in a certain area so dyslexic artists can become the top artists because they can master that area. Interconnected reasoning, I for interconnected reasoning, so we can connect things together that other people wouldn't connect, seemingly random stuff, random things and whatnot. Narrative reasoning, which is like storytelling and that kind of thing. And D, I think, might be daydreaming. I can't remember if that's the right way, like coming up with ideas and putting them together. I could be wrong, I forgot. But so using those strengths to benefit Itanful and Celtic and things like make the world a better place generally. Another thing is, like I say, how dyslexic thinking could make the world a better place. Moving on, number 18, and I think trying to be positive. I mean, Itanful was really great. So again, I'm sure, as I mentioned recently, that as I mentioned a few minutes ago, that if it was great, I'm sure it could be great again. And hopefully, dyslexics will show, and even as I say, dyscalculics, dysgraphics, and whatnot, even dyspraxics to an extent, and even people with other disabilities perhaps will show what we can achieve. And obviously, I'm a bit biased, as I say, but hopefully that will include benefiting Itanful and Celtic as much as possible and that kind of thing. Number 19. So yeah, I think even like with some of the stuff with I talk about like loss leading products, like giving away footballs to like the Italian teams gave away footballs to, or even the national team as well, club teams like AC Milan or Roma or whatever, to people in Africa and Asia and around the world. It could improve the image of Itanful. But the other thing is, even with the national team, it will improve the PR and image of Itanful, and certainly with the club teams. So I think it's like what the English FA does and whatnot, for instance. So it's like the carrot and stick approach, I think you could say, or whatever, if I'm using the term right, I'm using that analogy right, that metaphor or whatever you call it. But so even doing that kind of stuff, and hopefully working with FIFA and UEFA to do those good causes, football for good, will benefit Itanful. Like FIFA and UEFA could donate to Itanful themselves and invest in Itanful and infrastructure and pitches in Italy for towns to play football, and similar with Celtic. But at the same time, they could also help to give access to funding, as I said before. So I mentioned recently that they could, just to reiterate that point, it's a big word for me, but it's a complex word for me as well, but they could, seeing more money in football would hopefully benefit FIFA and UEFA as well. But as a reward for Itanful and Celtic, like promoting the image of the beautiful game, like peace through football, peace and love through football, as I talked about before, how football can connect people together and build bridges and that kind of thing. And number 20, hopefully dyslexic footballers will have great skills themselves, including those in Italy. So maybe the next, hopefully the next Zidane or Ronaldinho could be a dyslexic in Italy. And it'd be interesting if Celtic could produce great players in Scottish football, considering the league they're in, and the league we're in is a very weak league. It'd be interesting to see what they would do with great players. I imagine, I mean, I'm not saying Celtic doesn't have great players, but like really world-class players with great skills in Scottish football. It'd be hard to imagine, but hopefully they can achieve a great deal. I think dyslexic thinking outside the box, like for instance having a mix between younger and older players and things like that, and or tic-tacs or tactics and that kind of thing, strategies and that kind of thing. I'd love to know, if you made it this far, I'd love to know what you think, like what if anything could dyslexics contribute to Itanful and Strickle Celtic and to make the world a better place. And on that note, I'm out, and peace out.